Hi, this is Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextrous Gunfighter. This is part 2 of our video series on the Hellcat RDP. And in the first episode I mentioned that the Hex Wasp, which came with the RDP I'm testing here, was made in China. And I spoke quite disparagingly of that. And I recommended that you consider the Shield Sights SMSc, which is an option direct from Springfield Armory. So, and I promised in that video, or I said in that video, that I was not going to explain the reasons why I think the SMSc, or the RMSc, which is the aluminum frame body version, is better than the Hex Wasp. But for justice sake, for Shield Sights, I thought I should at least let you know why I like the SMSc. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, you've managed to find your way here through a little bit of effort. Either you found the link in the description, the link at the end of the part 1 video, or you found it in the playlist, or you're watching this on one of the alternative platform channels. So I'm assuming you're at least a with that amount of effort required to get here, I think that means you deserve to get an explanation of why I prefer the SMSc over the Hex Wasp, besides just the fact that China, People's Republic of China, versus United Kingdom NATO ally. Anyway, I'm back from a pretty rough COVID experience. I contracted the virus just 2 days after my Hellcat RDP, or Rapid Defense Pistol, gain of function video went live, and my YouTube traffic plummeted by 80%. Alternative platforms featuring the video continued growing. It was just YouTube. Fortunately, I know with some precision the primary the source or the vector of my virus inoculum, so there's no grounds for any conspiracy there in regards to my getting COVID-19. But the traffic stats, that was a little bit alarming. The Hellcat RDP is most commonly packaged with the Hex Wasp, but like I say, you do have the option to get the Shield SMSc direct from Springfield Armory. Now, Shield Sights set the standard for mounting a red dot on a compact pistol, or at least the mounting base. And Shield Sights are made in UK rather than China. Let's compare the two besides that fact. Let's set the pistol aside here. Okay, here's the Hex Wasp, which features an aluminum frame. Very nicely done, 6061 aluminum frame. This is the SMSc with a polymer frame. Now, you can get from Shield Sights, they do offer the RMSc, which is an aluminum and skeletonized frame, which is a little more elegant, but and it weighs a little bit more. As does the Hex Wasp. It weighs about just a little over 3 grams more than the polymer version Shield Sight. So it's polymer versus aluminum. The polymer is a bit thicker in general, but however, in this case, the Hex does have some parts that are a bit thicker on your viewing port there. And I didn't notice it shooting it, but you know, a thicker body is going to be a little more difficult to get it to blur away, and so that you see just the dot on the target. The Hex Wasp, with its kind of slide serration extensions, is a little bit wider than the SMSc from Shield. Now, one thing I do like about polymer, now keep in mind, on your pistol, this is all, the bottom part is polymer, so don't be afraid of polymer. Now, the polymer being a bit lighter, I figure that over, maybe hundreds of thousands of rounds fired, it's going to be a little bit lighter, and therefore a little bit less risk of a malfunction. That little added 3 or 4 grams of this one, you know, you get a dirty pistol, and that little tiny extra bit of weight just might cause that slide not to come all the way back as far as it needs to, and maybe cause a failure to eject, extract, or a failure to feed or something like that. Now, another issue with the aluminum body is that you have the potential of creating galvanic corrosion when paired with a stainless steel slide. Now, with most modern slides that are coated, like with the DLC finish or these finishes on the Hellcats, that's going to be pretty unlikely, but there is that possibility. Aluminum and stainless steel could establish a bit of galvanic corrosion, especially if you're in a salt air environment. With a polymer body, you know, that's not going to happen at all. Now, the SMSc, as well as its other brother, the RMSc, do feature glass lenses, as does the Hex Wasp. So no significant difference there. Now, one thing I've found is that the SMSc and RMSc feature kind of a more stable LED than the Hex Wasp. Now, cameras just will not pick up this to really show that. Occasionally you can see the red dot there, but that's not what it really looks like in real life. It's much crisper than that. But the Hex Wasp, there's just a little bit of a flicker, and it's just not quite as distinct as the shield sights. Now, one thing to keep in mind is in a gunfight, if you can't find cover, you should be favoring the concealment of shadows. And the Wasp seems more aggressive in its automatically changing the brightness level based on ambient light than the shield. Therefore, when the Hex Wasp is used from the shadows, targeting a lighted area, its dim dot is very hard to find. If shooting from the shadows, I greatly preferred the shield SMSc or RMSc. It doesn't vary the brightness level quite as much. So when shooting from dark, you can actually shooting from dark into light, you can actually find the dot with this much easier. It's much brighter. Now, both optics do require that you dismount the optic to change the batteries. You notice the shield sights has a nice little sticker that they include several of these that you can stick on the bottom of the battery to kind of add as a gasket, I guess, to help, I don't know, for some vibration protection or something, or maybe to prevent galvanic corrosion between the slide and the battery. The back part of the shield sights is sealed, whereas the Hex Wasp is a little more open there. Does that make a difference? Can't say. Anyway, both do require that you remove the sight to change the battery. It's not a big deal when you figure that they last around 2 years. And if you properly torque your mounting screws each time, you're not likely to detect a change in zero. I mean, remember, these are the shield sights are 4 MOA dots, and I believe the Hex is the 3.5 MOA dot. So basically, 3 MOA-ish dots, typically fired at 7 to 10 yards. So yeah, I can't claim the ability to discern a minute change in zero when mounting and remounting these optics. Now, otherwise, for finding your dot when you first are learning to shoot a pistol with an optic mounted on it, I highly recommend developing your point shooting skills first using a training laser and the Mantis X10 Elite training system. And the combination of the two, I mean, it's excellent practice, but with the laser you can practice point shooting inside your home and get really comfortable with getting that pistol on sight by just using the feel of your body, your grip, indexing your finger on the side and pointing at your target with your finger, and hitting the target with the laser. just by, you know, physically feeling of the pistol and indexing in your hand. And once you're proficient with point shooting, then when it comes time and you bring this pistol up to eye level, that dot will be right there. So anyway, check out our video series, the Rex Applegate video series, link down description, and that'll get you started with point shooting. Also remember, when dry firing the Hellcat, either use a snap cap or a training laser to protect the striker. Apparently they're a little bit fragile if you dry fire without those in there. As far as my experience with them and when actual shooting, you know, I did lots of two-handed shooting with them, and basically I you know, both felt perfectly fine. I could shoot the Hex Wasp just fine as well. I could not detect that I could shoot it any worse or any better than the Shield SMSc. So no big difference there. I just want to emphasize though that when shooting from the concealment of the shadows, I definitely prefer the SMSc. That I'm able to, you know, like I say, find that dot better when shooting from the shadows into a lighted target. So if you're using a flashlight on a target, that's going to probably wash out that little dimmed dot on the Hex Wasp. Now, just to reiterate from part one, what the features I really like about the Hellcat are what are carried over from the original Hellcat. It has, I think, one of the better button magazine releases, a good solid trigger. I like the texture, the grip feels good. I like the landing points up there for either indexing your finger or for the thumbs forward placement. I like the fact that you've got a tritium insert in your front sight, and so that works good as a, you know, if you're running the red dot, that's your backup sights there. So those are all good solid features. The non-proprietary rail, I do like that as well. You know, for the Hellcat, my preferred setup was definitely the SMSc for the red dot optic, and I decided that for me, I prefer running it without the brake on it. So that would be my preferred setup. You know, I like the fact that you got a longer barrel on this pistol, so that's a little more velocity. And with the brake off, that longer barrel is not going to really take up any more space inside your waistband. And then just again, SMSc on there for its performance from the shadows. Now for me, the SMSc will actually ultimately be deployed on my 365XL, my RMSc, which is basically the same optic, just with an aluminum frame and you know, a little more skeletonized frame, is being mounted here on my Browning Buckmark. Mainly just because it's that aluminum body is a little more elegant, and I just thought that would look better on this elegant Browning Buckmark. And I also liked the Picatinny to the SMSc base that is available from Shield sights. I like that it's very, very slim and smooth. It doesn't have any of those big giant protruding thumb nuts that stick out the side like is on my Burris Fastfire. So good job, Shield sights, on making a nice Picatinny rail base for an SMSc mounted optic. Now I wonder how the Hex came to have features so similar to the RMSc. Did the Chinese manufacturer buy a Shield sight to copy, or did Springfield Armory send them one of their sights of their inventory and ask the PRC factory to copy it? It may seem like an insignificant difference, but it tells us if the Quisling behavior of Springfield Armory was active or passive. Active or passive collaboration seems to be the only differentiator between the major American Compact 9 manufacturers. Springfield Armory Hellcat RDP with a Hex Wasp made in China, Sig P265XL with its Romeo 0 sight made in China. And even the recently released Kimber R7 with the Crimson Trace CTS 1500. The CTS 1500 also made in China. On the plus side, at least you can order the Hellcat RDP with an SMSc. Sadly, most gun stores will stock it with the Hex Wasp. And of course, you can order the 365XL and the Kimber R7 without an optic and choose your own. And again, I would recommend the Shield Sights SMSc or the RMSc if you look for a little bit more elegant looking sight. But I think the Polymer is perfectly fine for a self-defense sight optic. Springfield Armory Hellcat Rapid Defense Pistol. This is a pistol. I strive to keep my hands off my package when on video. It's Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextrous Gunfighter. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. When mounting your sight, you'll be using the included Torx T15 screws, and I highly recommend, if you can have access to like a torque wrench that'll can read down into smaller torque levels, because you want to torque these to about 11 to 12 inch-pounds compared to like say on a Sig P265XL, where you're using 3mm screws. Those you torque to 9 inch-pounds. But by torquing it with the torque wrench, you make sure you don't strip out the head and the screws or anything, and you also establish some consistency in the mounting so that your zero will remain consistent when you do those battery changes. You can see the Shield SMSc looks great on the Hellcat. It's very slim profile, doesn't have anything protruding out that give it, where the Hex kind of has that little bit more of a tactical with the grippy things on the side of it. The SMSc does not have that. It relies upon you either using the slide serrations, or if if you actually want to rack the slide and you don't trust the slide serrations, just use the sight itself.